the president is going to look to woo votes from the crypto community, which most people in crypto, they were super bullish about Trump because he was super pro-crypto. He lured them into vote. Then he essentially didn't do much, as we saw, aside from some rug pulls, and people in crypto have really soured. And so to get some of those votes into the midterm, he's going to have to push through the Clarity Act. And when that happens, that's going to be a big catalyst to upside. And I think the market is already reading into this with buyers today. You saw liquidations when XRP pierced $1, a lot of them. And then someone came in and bought a ton of XRP down there. We know XRP will be one of the main beneficiaries of the Clarity Act.
The Clarity Act was supposed to move forward before the Senate left for its August recess, but lawmakers ultimately pushed the floor vote into September. That means the market is now staring at a narrow window when Congress returns, with negotiations still unresolved and only a limited amount of legislative time before the midterm election cycle takes over. But here's the interesting part. While Washington is arguing over the rules, the charts are already beginning to price in what could happen if those rules finally become law. Popular technical analyst Gareth Soloway believes the September return to Washington could become the moment when the administration has a powerful incentive to deliver something the crypto industry has been waiting for. And if the Clarity Act finally clears that political bottleneck, Soloway believes it could provide a major upside catalyst not just for Bitcoin, but especially for altcoins such as XRP, which could benefit from a clearer regulatory framework for digital assets. The SEC, meanwhile, is also moving independently on crypto regulation and tokenized securities, reinforcing the idea that the regulatory landscape is changing even while Congress struggles to finish the job. In this video, we're going through Soloway's complete setup, the Bitcoin trendline that could determine whether the current pullback is healthy or dangerous, Ethereum's bullish consolidation, Solana's potential move toward $100, and the XRP liquidation event that Soloway believes could be signaling accumulation. Most importantly, we'll examine why he thinks the Clarity Act could become the catalyst that turns these technical setups into something much bigger. So if you want to stay ahead of the next major crypto move, hit the like button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next market update. Let me know in the comments whether you think September changes the game.
Let's get into the charts here, folks. First off, we have Bitcoin, and this is what I'm talking about. So yesterday and today, we saw Bitcoin coming in. And again, you look at that and you say, it's not that big of a move, but, decent little drop to the downside after essentially topping out around 65,000. We've come back down to 63,500. Now, again, that's only a $1,500 drop. But what's important to me is this trend line, this high pivot to these high pivots. You hammered on it, broke out, and then very commonly you retrace and use this as your trampoline. We call it the retrace to the scene of the crime. And what ends up happening most of the time here is you fall back into it, right? You have scared investors that are getting nervous as it's coming in. And once you get there, you get a good amount of liquidations. And notice how it's right at these lows to liquidate all these players right in there. And once you do that, then it gets its bounce to the upside. And that's where I would expect that bigger move up to 71 to 72,000. If it breaks that, we're looking at a move up to about 77,000. So Bitcoin, yes, it's pulling back. Does it change the structure of the chart? The answer is absolutely not, as long as it holds this trend line. Now, if we look at that trend line, we do need to notice where does it fail, right? Because any pattern can fail. Remember, this is a probability game. So if we go to this, we can see that basically you want to hold this 62,500 level. All right, now it is descending, so over the course of the next few days, it'll creep down towards 62, but basically just keep your trend line on there. I mean, it's very simple to see if you close below the trend line, especially if it were to be below these lows right here at around 62,200 or so. That would be concerning, as it could be a failed breakout. But right now, the structure is intact. A lot of people, like I said, getting scared about this little downdraft. I mean, who thought $1,500 drop in Bitcoin would scare people? But it does in this day and age. And my thesis is this, and we'll go into Ethereum, Solana, XRP. And I said, I actually think XRP might have bottomed today, and we'll look at that. But the thesis here from a fundamental. So the technicals are firm. We have a breakout. We're retracing to the scene of the crime. Let's see if we snap back off of that and head higher. But the fundamental aspect is this. is that I still think the Clarity Act is going to get passed, and it's going to get passed in September, probably late September. The key factor here is that when Congress comes back from its recess, the president is going to look to woo votes from the crypto community, which most people in crypto, they were super bullish about Trump because he was super pro crypto. He lured them into vote. Then he essentially didn't do much, as we saw, aside from some rug pulls, and people in crypto have really soured. And so to get some of those votes into the midterm, he's going to have to push through the Clarity Act. And when that happens, that's going to be a big catalyst to upside. And I think the market is already reading into this with buyers today. You saw liquidations when XRP pierced $1, a lot of them. And then someone came in and bought a ton of XRP down there. We know XRP will be one of the main beneficiaries of the Clarity Act. So watch that, folks, and keep an eye on the charts. The charts remain, most of these are bullish. All right, let's take a look at ETH. We'll get to XRP in just a minute. This is an amazing chart. Like Ethereum or ETH, this chart is better than Bitcoin by a mile right now. It's better than almost all of the other cryptos. What do I mean by that? Classic inverse head and shoulders. You broke out right here. Notice it tested it and held and is now going sideways. What type of pattern is this, folks? So if you have a move up like this and you start going like this, what type of pattern? It's a bullish flag consolidation as long as it holds this trend line, currently sitting around 1775. So as long as you hold 1775 on a daily closing basis, this is a great setup on ETH. ETH is consolidating. Look at how it's holding up like a true champ, consolidating like this. This should resolve itself to the upside.
Bitcoin has pulled back from roughly $65,000 toward the $63,500 area, but the larger breakout structure remains intact as long as that descending trend line continues to hold. Soloway's critical failure zone sits around the low $62,000, meaning the market still has room to shake out nervous traders without necessarily destroying the bullish setup. If the structure survives, Soloway sees $71,000 to $72,000 as the next major objective, followed by roughly $77,000 if that resistance gives way. And Bitcoin isn't the only chart attracting his attention. Ethereum is showing an even cleaner technical structure, while the potential regulatory catalyst could extend far beyond the two largest cryptocurrencies. Soloway believes several altcoins are already showing signs of waking up before the fundamental catalyst has even arrived.
Now let's move on to Solana. And by the way, I don't have any ETH. I took profits on it already on the move up and I haven't rebought. But I will say that I do hold Bitcoin long. All right now. I have Solana long right now. I even have XRP long right now, as well as some of the other altcoins out there. And it's only because of the structure based on technical analysis. Like, again, the Clarity Act is kind of the fuse that can be lit to blast these things. But the chart is already telling me as long, and I repeat this, as long as we hold these levels and these trend lines, the chart is already telling me the end game here. The end game is these things will take off, or at least as long as those trend lines hold, the probability is very, very high that they take off. All right, going into Solana, I love this guy's cup pattern here. Here's your handle. Here's your breakout. Here's your classic retrace. I mean, this is just a picture-perfect breakout, retrace, and then you should get that next move up. Near-term resistance will be around 83, but my guess is, notice the parallel trend line here. This trend line with this trend line, those are parallel. And look at this. If you put a trend line in right here, where do they converge? Right up here around $100. That's my upside target on Solana. So I'm looking for a move up on Solana. And yes, I have Solana holdings right now. I even picked up a little bit of SOLZ, as I've told a few of my premium members of Gareth's Top Squad. I did a video telling them exactly what I was in. But that one's the ETF that tracks Solana here. Once I saw that breakout, I said, all right, I got to start nibbling a little bit here. And that's exactly what I did. All right, let's look at that XRP because it is an intriguing chart. So today, number one, we can ignore this. The bigger factor was this, right? And we have that. So here's your bigger wedge pattern. Okay, wedge patterns condense price. When you break out, that's where, again, oftentimes you will rip up. In this case, because crypto has been so bearish and the Clarity Act issues, it hasn't allowed for that yet, but it is still a ticking time bomb. And what I loved about today is you got this. Look at this 10-minute chart. it flushed all the stops and liquidations at $1. And then look, it's ripped up and actually has turned green on the day. Yes, XRP is now green on the day. As long as we hold this line here at 96.5 cents, 95 cents right here, then this chart has broken out. It's just waiting for that catalyst to rip it up. Short-term resistance would be around $1.17. My guess is we're heading all the way back to about $1.55 if the Clarity Act gets passed. That's about 50+%, 55% upside from the current level. So the charts, again, I go through a lot of these charts. A lot of these charts are very, very bullish. I mean, we can go through other ones. I mean, a few other ones. I mean, you could see certain charts are starting to rip up. Cardano recently, it's starting to pull back, but it's had a great run. ICP in the last 24 hours has had a good move to the upside. So more and more of these things are waking up. And again, what I'm seeing in my deep dive analysis is that retail is panicking. They're saying, oh my God, Clarity Act got stalled out again. This is horrible. Crypto's in a bear market. It seems like it's going down forever. Smart money is accumulating. At least, again, as long as these levels hold, I can see the volume spikes on these dips. I mean, look at the volume after the liquidation on XRP. There's a big surge in volume, and you don't get back above to those levels by a few buyers picking up a few tokens of XRP, right? So again, you're seeing smart money accumulating here. And that, again, to me, tells me everything I need to know. I put the logic behind it with the technical analysis, and off to the races we go.
According to recent reports, the SEC is pursuing its own crypto initiatives that could serve as an alternative to the Clarity Act. These include work around tailored treatment for certain crypto investment contracts and the broader framework surrounding tokenized securities. In other words, the question is becoming less about whether the United States will build a framework for digital assets and more about how quickly and comprehensively that framework takes shape. If the Clarity Act eventually passes, it wouldn't be arriving in a vacuum. It would be landing on top of technical structures that traders have already been watching for weeks. Bitcoin would have its breakout and retest structure. Ethereum would have its inverse head and shoulders and bullish consolidation. Solana would have its cup and handle setup. And XRP would already have demonstrated that buyers were willing to step in aggressively after a liquidation flush. That's why Soloway's thesis ultimately comes down to catalyst versus structure. The catalyst can accelerate the move, but it can't manufacture a bullish chart out of nothing. What he's seeing is a market where several charts are already positioned for upside, while the biggest potential fundamental catalyst remains ahead of them. If those trend lines continue to hold, and Washington finally delivers the regulatory clarity the market has been waiting for, the question may no longer be whether crypto can break higher, but how violently the market reprices when uncertainty finally gives way to clarity. So the big question now is simple. Is the crypto market quietly building the next breakout while everyone is distracted by the delays in Washington? Do you think the Clarity Act gets passed in September? And if it does, which asset benefits the most: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, or another altcoin? Drop your prediction in the comments. If you found this analysis useful, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video with someone watching the crypto market, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss our next market breakdown. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.